February is Black History Month. Reporter John Moeller did a series of interviews with Anthony Harris, who is a professor in the College of Education at Sam Houston State University. He is a lecturer and an author of 9 books. He also is an activist and was part of the civil rights movement in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Dr. Harris is a lecturer and author of 9 books, including Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round, a coming-of-age story and personal account of the civil rights movement in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He grew up in Hattiesburg in southern Mississippi at the height of the civil rights movement. In 1966, 12 years after the Supreme Court ruled that schools be desegregated, Hattiesburg schools remained separated into black and white. The young Anthony Harris decided to integrate Thames Junior High.
5 of us, 5 black teenagers, we chose to attend Thames Junior High School. And that was the first time those white students had been in class with black students. And of course, this was 12 years after the Brown decision in 1954. And Hattiesburg, like many cities across the South, they were very slow in embracing the notion of school desegregation. So it was a momentous, it was a historic time for the city and the school district in Hattiesburg. And while it was pretty frightening and unnerving many times being at that school, I consider it an honor to have been one of the pioneers and being one of the people who first brought school desegregation to the city of Hattiesburg.
It made sense for Anthony Harris to become an activist, for he was not only courageous, but his mother was local civil rights leader Daisy Harris Wade.
My late mother, she passed away about 4 years ago, a little more than 4 years ago. She was I call her an icon. She was a warrior in the civil rights movement in Hattiesburg.
Daisy Harris Wade led freedom marches in Hattiesburg. In 1964, the freedom marches were taking place across Mississippi. African American demonstrators, joined by clergy and activists from the North, demanded voting rights.
She was probably in her mid-20s or 30s, I imagine, at that time. She was actively involved in demonstrations and marches and mass meetings, and whenever she went to a meeting, whenever she went to a demonstration, she always took her 3 boys with her. And we have so many pictures of us sitting with our mom at these meetings, and she was a small woman in stature, but she had a commanding presence.
These were hopeful times and dangerous times. Medgar Evers and other activists were murdered in towns nearby. In January 1966, the Ku Klux Klan firebombed the home of Hattiesburg businessman Vernon Damer. Damer fought off his attackers long enough for his family to escape, but died from his wounds the next day. Across town in that same month, Anthony Harris, his brother, and a friend determined to march outside the courthouse. It wasn't long before a squad pulled a U-turn, and officers hustled the boys into the car.
We were just scared to death. We're young kids here. We're probably 10, 11 years old, maybe 12 years old. And as they sped off, taking us to the police station, presumably, the officer in the passenger side picked up his 2-way radio and he said, "Headquarters, have the dogs been fed today?" "Well, they haven't." "Well, we're bringing in fresh meat for them." And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be fed to the police officer. They were talking about us. And we got us to the police station, and we were shivering. We were cold. We were cold, shaking from the cold and from the fear. And the only thing on my mind at that time as I walked down this long corridor in this police station, I'm listening for the sound of barking dogs. I thought literally that we were going to be fed to the dogs. At any rate, they took us into this interrogation room, and there were chairs in the room, but they would not allow us to sit in those chairs. We had to sit on the floor. And as we were sitting there, one of the officers kept trying to intimidate us. He kept, I use the term, terrorizing us, because he pulled out of his back pocket a blackjack, which is a weapon that police use to subdue people they're trying to arrest. And it's a small piece of lead wrapped in black leather. And as he was walking toward us, he was tossing that blackjack from hand to hand in a very threatening, menacing way, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, we've managed to not get eaten by the dogs. Now this man is going to beat us to death in this room. And about that time, the door to this interrogation room opens up this loud bang, bam. In walks this small, petite black woman who is yelling and screaming and telling these officers, let these boys go. You have no right to hold them. I mean, you let them go right now. And that was my mom. That was Daisy Harris coming to the rescue. And I had never been happier to see my mother as I was when she walked into that room. And after a while, I think the officers responded to my mom the way we did when she raised her voice, and that is, you better do what she says. This woman is serious here. So after a while, they let us go. But that was just an example of her courage, an example of her willingness to make sacrifices for the sake of justice and the sake of her children.
The struggle of Dr. Harris and the Freedom Marchers culminated in the landmark Civil Rights Act protecting voting rights for all, and signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson in 1965. To find Dr. Harris's books, including Faith, Family, Friends, Freedom, The Life and Legacy of Daisy Harris Wade, search Anthony J. Harris on Amazon, or visit his website, anthonyjharris.com. Next week we'll hear more from Dr. Harris, including the night that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to Hattiesburg. From the North Transmitter in Huntsville, this is John Moeller reporting.